The enormous crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber gleamed under the light of 3 suns. Inside, thousands of alien representatives from across the Milky Way sat in rising tiers around a central platform, a perfect circle of polished obsidian where accused species stood to receive judgment. Today was unprecedented. For the first time in 18 million cycles, the entire council had assembled for an emergency session. The subject? Earth Ambassador Thomas Reed stood alone on the obsidian platform, his simple gray suit a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments of the alien representatives. At 67, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that carried the weight of humanity's future, he appeared almost fragile beneath the towering council arbiter, a 12-foot alien with iridescent scales and 6 upper limbs. Ambassador Reed. The arbiter's voice resonated through the chamber, translated simultaneously into 4,000 languages. You stand before us representing a species that has, in a mere 16 galactic standard years since first contact, violated no fewer than 37 non-aggression treaties. The destruction of the Phelan outpost alone resulted in 12,000 casualties. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Several delegates from the outer rim visibly recoiled. The evidence against humanity is overwhelming, continued the arbiter. This council must now determine whether Earth shall be quarantined, with all interstellar privileges revoked, or if more, permanent measures are required. Reed's expression remained impassive, but his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around the small device in his pocket. Before this council renders judgment, Reed spoke, his voice steady and unnervingly calm, I would ask permission to present evidence that has not been considered in these proceedings. The evidence phase has concluded. Ambassador, the arbiter replied coldly. What I have to show bears directly on your deliberations, Reed persisted. It will take precisely 4 minutes of the council's time. The chamber fell silent as the arbiter consulted briefly with 2 robed figures at its side. Proceed, the arbiter finally conceded. 4 minutes. Reed nodded and activated the device in his pocket. Immediately, the chamber's central holographic system illuminated, displaying a 3-dimensional star map of the galaxy. Esteemed members of the council, Reed began, 16 years ago humanity was welcomed into the galactic community with promises of peace and mutual prosperity. What we received instead was calculated exploitation. The hologram shifted, highlighting dozens of red points across human-controlled space. These markers represent manufacturing facilities established on Earth and our colonies by various council races, facilities that were presented as technological partnerships but designed to extract Earth's resources while providing us with obsolete technology. The Phelan delegate rose, mandibles clicking furiously. This is outrageous. The human distorts. I have not finished. Reed cut in with such authority that the Phelan, astonishingly, fell silent. The hologram changed again, revealing internal communications between council, species, communications that should have been impossible for humans to access. We have evidence of 17 separate biological weapons programs targeting human-specific genetic markers developed by races sitting in this very chamber. We have recorded conversations between council members discussing the human problem and how to solve it without appearing to violate non-aggression principles. The chamber erupted in shocked outcries. The arbiter slammed a ceremonial staff demanding order. Most damning, Reed continued when the noise subsided, we have proof that the Phelan outpost was not a scientific research station as claimed, but a forward military installation developing planet-killer technology intended for Earth. The hologram now showed detailed schematics of a massive weapon, along with deployment plans specifically targeting human population centers. The attack on the Phelan outpost was not an act of human aggression, but of self-preservation. We struck only after confirming beyond doubt that the weapon was in its final testing phase. Reed paused, his gaze sweeping the chamber. You believed us primitive, limited. You underestimated our intelligence networks, our adaptive capabilities, our determination to survive. That was your mistake. The arbiter's upper limbs trembled with barely contained rage. These accusations are all verified and stored in multiple locations throughout and beyond this galaxy, Reed interrupted. If anything happens to Earth or any human settlement, these records will be broadcast to every spacefaring civilization along with the quantum encryption keys to access the Council's most classified archives. Reed looked up, directly into the Arbiter's compound eyes. You called this session to judge humanity, but we are not here for judgment. We are here with terms. The device in Reed's hand pulsed once, and every communication screen in the chamber suddenly displayed the same message, a simple set of coordinates, followed by a countdown timer showing 48 hours. Those coordinates mark the location of a small moon where we've established a diplomatic outpost. In 2 days, humanity will present its terms for continued peaceful coexistence with the Council. Until then, we suggest you carefully consider the consequences of your next actions. As Reed turned to leave the platform, the Arbiter found its voice. Ambassador, you cannot simply— We can and we have, Reed replied without turning around. For centuries, humanity dreamed of finding enlightened allies among the stars. Instead, we found politics as petty and treacherous as our own. The difference is we've had millennia of practice at survival against all odds. At the edge of the platform, Reed finally turned to face the stunned assembly. Humanity does not want war. But make no mistake, if forced to fight for our existence, the galaxy will understand exactly why humanity's wrath is something to be feared. As Reed walked from the chamber, not a single voice was raised in protest. The countdown timer continued its relentless progress, marking the beginning of a new era in galactic relations, one where humanity would no longer be underestimated. When Reed stepped through the massive ceremonial doors into the private antechamber, his composed demeanor faltered slightly. He let out a long breath and loosened his collar. How did it go in there? Asked Director Marcus Vega, the head of Earth's Interstellar Intelligence Division. At 58, Vega had spent decades building the most extensive covert network in human history, a web of informants, data taps, and autonomous monitoring systems that had given humanity its only real advantage. Exactly as we predicted, Reed replied, accepting a glass of water from an aide. Initial shock, then outrage, followed by the dawning realization that we've outmaneuvered them. And the Phalans? Vega asked, his dark eyes narrowing. Furious, of course. Their weapons program was supposed to be undetectable. Finding out we not only discovered it but have documented evidence was a significant blow to their standing. The 2 men moved toward a secure communication chamber where the rest of Earth's leadership awaited. As the doors sealed behind them, holographic projections appeared showing the faces of President Diana Torres and the Joint Chiefs of Interstellar Defense. Ambassador Reed, Torres greeted him, her expression grave. We've received the preliminary reaction data from the Council chamber. The situation is developing rapidly. Reed nodded. As expected. The countdown has begun. We have 48 hours before the diplomatic summit at Outpost Themis. And what if they choose military action instead? Asked Admiral James Okafor, the highest-ranking military officer in Earth's defense forces. Some will want to, Reed acknowledged, particularly the Phalans and their allies. But the evidence we revealed has created enough doubt and division within the Council to prevent immediate consensus for attack, Director. Vega activated a holographic display showing real-time movements of various alien fleets throughout nearby space. We're already seeing repositioning of several key battle groups. The Arcturan fleet has pulled back from Earth's approach vectors, likely a sign they're reconsidering their position. President Torres studied the display. And the contingency measures? In place, Reed confirmed. If negotiations fail, or if any Council species attempts a preemptive strike, the automated systems will activate. Every piece of evidence we've gathered will be transmitted across all communication networks simultaneously. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications. For years, humanity had projected a carefully crafted image, technologically curious but naive, diplomatically eager but inexperienced, all while building the most extensive intelligence network the galaxy had ever known, documenting every betrayal, every conspiracy, every violation of the very treaties the Council now accused Earth of breaking. We never wanted this confrontation, Torres said finally. All we sought was fair treatment and honest partnership. Which is precisely what we'll offer at Outpost Themis, Reed replied. A genuine alliance of equals or nothing at all. As the meeting continued, the timer counted down in Council chambers across the galaxy. Humanity had revealed its hand, not as a species to be exploited or eliminated, but as one that would fight for its rightful place among the stars. And in doing so, they had forever changed the balance of power in a civilization that had stood unchallenged for millions of years. The first step toward reshaping the galaxy had begun, not with weapons of war, but with the quiet power of truth wielded at precisely the right moment. In the 48 hours following Ambassador Reed's unprecedented confrontation with the Galactic Council, the diplomatic moon at the provided coordinates transformed into the most heavily monitored location in the galaxy. Massive Council warships maintained position at a respectful distance, their weapon systems active but not locked, a delicate balance between caution and restraint. Admiral Lydia Ortega stood at the observation deck of the Prometheus, Earth's flagship and the most advanced vessel humans had ever constructed. At 42, she was the youngest fleet admiral in Earth's unified defense force, with a reputation for both tactical brilliance and unflinching resolve. Her dark eyes scanned the tactical displays showing the positions of the alien armada. "They've brought enough firepower to glass the surface of a small planet," remarked Commander Jackson, her second in command. "But not enough to survive what would follow," Ortega replied, "and they know it." The diplomatic outpost below was a marvel of human engineering, constructed in absolute secrecy over the past 3 years. Its design was deliberately austere, a series of interconnected hexagonal structures nestled within a crater, protected by energy fields that would be considered impossible by Council technological standards. Inside the central conference chamber, a team of Earth's most brilliant minds made final preparations. Dr. Eleanor Voss, the architect of humanity's quantum intelligence network, adjusted settings on a holographic interface while nearby. General Marcus Harlow reviewed security protocols with his team. "They're sending a delegation of 18 representatives," Harlow announced, studying an incoming transmission, including the High Arbiter itself. Voss nodded without looking up. "Interesting. They're taking this seriously." "They should," came a voice from the doorway. Director James Way entered the chamber, his expression grave. At 73, Way was the head of Earth's Strategic Intelligence Division, an organization whose existence remained classified even within human government. His seemingly frail appearance belied a mind that had orchestrated the most extensive covert intelligence operation in human history. "Our deep cover operatives report emergency sessions across all major council races," Way informed them. "The Phalans are particularly agitated, demanding preemptive strikes against Earth. Fortunately, the Arcturan and Meridian delegations are urging caution." "And the weapon?" Harlow asked. Way's expression hardened. "Confirmed. 3 more planet-killer platforms in various stages of construction, all specifically designed to bypass our defense systems." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. For years, humanity had projected an image of technological naivety, while secretly monitoring every aspect of Council operations. What they discovered had confirmed their worst fears. Despite public overtures of peace, several dominant Council species had classified humans as an evolutionary threat to be managed and eventually eliminated. "How much time do we have before the first platform becomes operational?" Ortega asked. "Based on current development rates, less than 6 months," Way replied. Hence the urgency of today's demonstration. A soft chime indicated the arrival of the Council delegation on the moon's surface. Security feeds showed the diverse group of aliens being escorted through the facility's outer chambers. "Is the Harbinger ready?" Ortega asked. Voss nodded, her hands moving across the holographic controls. "Fully operational. All test sequences completed successfully." Way moved to stand before the gathered human leadership. "Remember our objective. We don't seek dominance or revenge, only security and respect. The Harbinger is our leverage, not our purpose." The doors to the chamber slid open, revealing the Council delegation. The High Arbiter entered first, its massive frame requiring it to duck beneath the doorway. Behind it came representatives from 17 different species, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form. Their expressions ranged from thinly veiled hostility to genuine apprehension. "Welcome to Outpost Themis," Way greeted them formally. "Please be seated." The chamber's circular table adjusted automatically to accommodate the various physiologies of the visitors. Once all were settled, Way activated a central holographic projector. 3 days ago, humanity stood accused before your Council," he began. "Today we meet as equals to discuss terms for peace." The High Arbiter's voice resonated through the chamber. Your actions have forced this meeting, Director Wei, but equality must be earned through more than threats and ultimatums. Wei's smile did not reach his eyes. Indeed, and we have earned it through centuries of surviving existential threats, both from our own nature and now, it seems, from yours. Before the Arbiter could respond, Wei continued. We will be direct. Humanity has discovered multiple weapons programs designed specifically for our extinction. We have uncovered systematic campaigns to undermine our colonies, restrict our technological development, and isolate us from potential allies, he gestured. And the hologram displayed evidence of each accusation, internal council documents, weapon schematics, and recorded conversations that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. This is a violation of Council security protocols of the highest order, protested a serpentine delegate from the Ophidian conclave. Yes, Wei agreed, just as your violation of non-aggression treaties warranted our response. But we are not here to exchange accusations. We are here to establish a new paradigm. He nodded to Dr. Voss, who activated a separate console. The hologram shifted to display a small, unassuming device, a silver sphere no larger than a human fist. This, Wei explained, is the Harbinger. The council delegates exchanged confused glances. You summoned the council's leadership to show us a toy. The Phalon representative clicked dismissively. Admiral Ortega stepped forward. This toy represents a fundamental breakthrough in quantum entanglement technology. Dr. Voss, please demonstrate. Voss entered a command sequence, and the hologram expanded to show a star system on the outer rim of the galaxy, uninhabited and unremarkable. We placed a receiver unit in this system 3 weeks ago, Voss explained. Observe, she activated the Harbinger. For a moment nothing happened. Then the star at the center of the displayed system flared brilliantly, before collapsing in on itself in a matter of seconds, transforming from a stable, main sequence star into a nascent black hole. The chamber fell into stunned silence. What you just witnessed, Wei said quietly, was the remote manipulation of quantum states across interstellar distances. The Harbinger didn't destroy that star. It simply altered its fundamental properties, accelerating processes that would normally take billions of years. The implications were clear and terrifying. Such technology rendered traditional defenses meaningless. No fleet, no planetary shield. No defense system could protect against a weapon that could reach across the galaxy and alter the basic fabric of matter itself. This is impossible, whispered the Arcturan delegate, 6 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. Such manipulation violates fundamental laws of physics as understood by every species in the Council. As understood by you, corrected Voss. Humanity's perspective offered unique insights. While you were busy developing bigger weapons, we were exploring the nature of reality itself. Wei raised a hand, drawing attention back to himself. We do not share this demonstration to threaten. We have constructed exactly 5 Harbinger devices. Their location and control protocols are known only to a select few humans, operating under a command structure that requires multiple independent authorizations for activation. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. We will never use the Harbinger offensively unless humanity faces extinction. We seek only to ensure our species' security and right to develop without interference. The High Arbiter had remained silent throughout the demonstration, its compound eyes unreadable. Now it spoke, voice subdued. What are your terms, Director Wei? Wei nodded to General Harlow, who distributed data tablets to each delegate. They are quite simple, Wei replied. First, immediate dismantling of all weapons programs targeting Earth or human settlements verified by joint inspection teams. Second, recognition of human sovereignty over our current and future colonies within specified expansion zones. Third, full membership in the Council with all associated rights and protections. Fourth, a non-aggression pact specifically addressing new technologies. The Phalon representative chittered angrily. You demand concessions while threatening us with annihilation? This is coercion, not diplomacy. No, corrected Ortega, her voice cold. This is what happens when you plot genocide against a species that refuses to die quietly. We discovered your planet killer program and chose negotiation over retaliation. Many within our government advocated for a preemptive strike against all involved species. This alternative represents restraint. The High Arbiter studied the terms carefully before addressing Wei again. These conditions are significant. The Council will require time to deliberate. Of course, Wei nodded. You have 24 hours. During this time, we ask that all Council military vessels maintain their current positions as a show of good faith. As the delegation prepared to depart, the Arcturan representative approached Wei privately. Not all Council species supported the actions against humanity, it said softly. Some of us argued for true cooperation from the beginning. Once the delegation had departed, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never witnessed such chaos. 3 weeks after the Harbinger demonstration, representatives of 218 spacefaring civilizations gathered for an emergency session that would determine the future of interstellar governance. The massive chamber, designed to project order and harmony, now echoed with accusations and demands as millennia of political stability threatened to collapse. High Arbiter Zolon stood at the central podium, its normally imposing presence diminished by the pandemonium surrounding it. Nearby, Ambassador Reed observed the proceedings with practiced neutrality, though his eyes reflected a calculated satisfaction. Order! Zolon's amplified voice finally cut through the tumult. This assembly will come to order or it will be adjourned. As the noise subsided, the Phaelon Prime delegate rose. Its chitin armor gleamed under the chamber lights, mandibles clicking in agitation. The question before us is clear, the Phaelon announced. How can the Council continue to function when a single species possesses the power to destroy solar systems at will? The humans must surrender the Harbinger technology immediately. Murmurs of agreement rose from nearly a third of the delegates, primarily those species who had been directly involved in anti-human weapons programs. Ambassador Reed made no move to respond, instead nodding slightly to the Meridian representative. The tall crystalline being rose gracefully. Perhaps the Meridian's melodic voice carried throughout the chamber. We should instead address why certain Council members felt justified in developing planetary extermination weapons targeting a newly contacted species. The records provided by the humans detail violations of our most sacred principles. This triggered another wave of shouting, as the assembly divided along increasingly clear lines. Older, established species who had dominated Council. Politics for millennia faced growing opposition from younger civilizations who saw in humanities stand a chance to reform a system that had marginalized them for generations. From his position near the central platform, Director Wei observed the fracturing of galactic politics with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. Beside him stood Commander Fiona Diaz, newly appointed as humanity's military attaché to the Council. At 38, Diaz had distinguished herself during the Phaelon outpost operation, leading the surgical strike team that had neutralized the weapon facility without destroying the entire installation. Precision that had preserved the very evidence now causing such upheaval. It's proceeding exactly as you predicted, Diaz murmured. Wei nodded slightly. The Council has maintained stability for 50,000 years through a carefully maintained power imbalance. Our actions didn't create this schism. We merely exposed contradictions that already existed. The Arcturan delegation, representing one of the oldest Council races, requested recognition. Their speaker, Elder Thalix, commanded respect even in this chaotic session. For 12,000 years I have served in this assembly, Thalix began, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. I have witnessed the admission of 96 species to our ranks, yet never have I seen such blatant violations of our founding principles as those uncovered by the humans. Thalix turned slowly, allowing his 6 eyes to survey the chamber. We pride ourselves on being civilized, on having moved beyond the primitive impulses of our evolutionary pasts. Yet documents now available to any delegate with sufficient clearance prove that members of our inner council conspired to commit genocide against a species whose only crime was developing too rapidly for comfort. The chamber fell silent as Thalix continued. I move that we formally recognize the evidence presented by humanity and establish an independent commission to investigate all involved parties, with appropriate sanctions to follow. The Phaelon Prime delegate chittered furiously. This is absurd. We cannot allow humans to dictate. They aren't dictating, interrupted a harsh voice. The Draconian representative, General Corvin, rose to his full height. His species, known for their militant pragmatism, rarely intervened in council politics unless military matters were at stake. The humans have demonstrated both technological superiority and remarkable restraint, Corvin growled. Had our positions been reversed, many here would have deployed planet killers already, not offered negotiations. His scaled head swung toward the Phelan delegation, particularly those now shouting the loudest for human containment. As the debate raged, the proceedings were suddenly interrupted by an urgent communication. The massive central hologram activated, displaying a tactical alert from the Council's Outer Rim security forces. Admiral Jexar of the Sentinel Fleet appeared on the projection. High Council, we have a situation at the Carillion Drift. A Phelan battle group is broken formation and is moving at maximum speed toward the human colony on Proxima Centauri 4. The chamber erupted again as Ambassador Reed immediately rose to his feet, his practiced composure finally broken. High Arbiter, I demand immediate action. This is an act of war. The Phelan Prime Delegate responded with surprising calm. We know nothing of this movement. If Phelan vessels are indeed approaching human space, they do so without authorization. Reed's eyes narrowed. A convenient claim. Director Wei was already activating his secure communication device, speaking rapidly to Admiral Ortega aboard the Prometheus. Commander Diaz moved swiftly to Reed's side, providing tactical updates from Earth's intelligence network. The High Arbiter struggled to maintain control of the increasingly fractured assembly. Council security forces will intercept. They will be too late, Reed cut in. The battle group will reach Proxima Centauri within 6 hours. Our colony there has minimal defenses and over 2 million civilians. Wei approached the central platform, his expression grave. High Arbiter, humanity requests immediate emergency assistance from all Council members with assets in the region. This is not just an attack on Earth, it is an assault on the very peace process this Council claims to value. The Assembly fell into factional chaos as species aligned themselves either with Earth or with those seeking to preserve the old power structure. Within minutes, it became clear that the Council was effectively paralyzed, unable to mount a unified response. In a private communication chamber adjacent to the main hall, Reed, Wei, Diaz, and several key alien allies convened an emergency meeting. We can have 4 defense cruisers at Proxima within 8 hours, Reed informed the group, but the colony will be defenseless for at least 2 hours after the Phelan force arrives. The Arcturan Elder Thalix joined them, moving with surprising speed for his ancient form. The Arcturan Third Fleet is already mobilizing. We can provide support within 5 hours, one by one. Representatives from a dozen species pledged assistance, all younger or marginalized. Council races who had themselves experienced the subtle oppression of the dominant powers. This is more than an attack, Wei observed. It's a calculated gambit to force us to use the Harbinger. They believe that if we destroy their battle group, the Council will unite against us out of fear. General Corvin of the Draconians snorted derisively. A miscalculation. My government has authorized me to inform you that if the Phelans attack your colony, we will consider it an act of aggression against galactic stability. Our forces near the Hexar corridor are already moving to intercept. Commander Diaz studied the tactical hologram showing the positions of various fleets. Even with these commitments, we're facing a devastating first strike before reinforcements can arrive. The colony's civilians. Reed's communication device signaled an incoming transmission from Earth. The hologram displayed the solemn face of President Eliana Cardoso. We've received the updates, Cardoso stated without preamble. The Defense Council has met. We will not abandon our people on Proxima, nor will we use the Harbinger. She paused, her expression resolute. Instead, we are authorizing deployment of the Aegis Protocol. Wei and Reed exchanged startled glances. The Aegis system was a closely guarded project, developed in parallel with the Harbinger but with fundamentally different applications. Madam President, Reed began cautiously. Aware of their alien allies listening, Aegis is untested in combat conditions. Dr. Voss has certified it ready, Cardoso replied firmly. The Prometheus and Titan will deploy immediately, carrying the necessary equipment. Admiral Ortega will coordinate with our allies for a unified defense. As the transmission ended, the alien representatives looked to Wei for explanation. What is this Aegis protocol? Elder Thalix inquired. Wei considered his response carefully. While the Harbinger represents our understanding of how to affect quantum states destructively, Aegis represents the opposite approach, using similar principles to create rather than destroy. Commander Diaz brought up technical schematics on a secure holographic display. In simple terms, it generates a localized field that alters the way matter and energy interact. Within this field, certain physical laws can be temporarily rewritten. General Corvin studied the display with narrowed eyes, a defense system that changes the rules of engagement themselves. Impressive if it works. Neutral, while the rest, predominantly the older established powers, maintained their opposition to Huring. The colony world of Proxima Centauri 4 hung like a blue-green jewel against the velvet backdrop of space. From the command deck of the Prometheus, Admiral Lydia Ortega watched as civilian evacuation ships streamed from the planet's surface, racing against time. Population centers were emptying as 2 million colonists fled toward the system's outer reaches. But the evacuation was far from complete. Phaelon Battle Group will enter weapons. Range in 47 minutes, Commander Jackson reported, his voice tense. Their current formation suggests they're planning an orbital bombardment rather than a ground invasion. Ortega nodded grimly. Their objective isn't occupation. It's demonstration. They want to prove that we can't protect our colonies without using the Harbinger. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, but the atmosphere was charged with anxiety. The Prometheus and her sister ship Titan had arrived just hours earlier, along with 4 defense cruisers, a formidable force, but significantly outgunned by the approaching Phaelon Armada. Status of Allied forces? Ortega inquired. Draconian interceptors will arrive in approximately 3 hours. Arcturan fleet in 5. Others are further out, replied the tactical officer. Too late to prevent the initial assault. Ortega's gaze shifted to the specialized compartment that had been constructed in the Prometheus's aft section. Through the transparent barrier, she could see Dr. Eleanor Voss and her team making final adjustments to the Aegis system, a massive array of interconnected devices surrounding a central spherical chamber. Voss looked up, catching Ortega's eye, and gave a short nod. The message was clear. They were ready, but there were no guarantees. The Admiral opened a ship-wide channel. All personnel, this is Admiral Ortega. In 30 minutes, we will engage an enemy force with superior numbers and firepower. Our mission is clear. Protect the colony until reinforcements arrive and the evacuation completes. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. Today we deploy a technology that redefines the nature of space combat. Have faith in Dr. Voss and her team. Hold fast to your training. Remember what we fight for. As the channel closed, Commander Jackson approached. The civilian leadership has been transferred to the emergency bunkers. Governor Alvarez requests permission to address you. Ortega nodded, and the main view screen shifted to show an older woman with steel-gray hair and the weathered complexion of someone who had spent decades helping build a colony from wilderness. Admiral, Governor Alvarez began without preamble. We still have over 1 million people on the surface. The evacuation centers are at capacity, and we need at least 8 more hours to reach minimum safe population reduction. Understood, Governor. We'll give you those hours, Ortega promised. If this fails, Alvarez said quietly. If the Phalons break through. They won't, Ortega stated with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. Focus on getting your people to safety. We'll handle the rest. As the communication ended, Dr. Voss entered the bridge, her normally composed demeanor showing signs of strain. At 52, Voss had dedicated her career to theoretical quantum mechanics, never expecting her research would be deployed in combat. The Aegis is online, she reported. We've synchronized the systems between both ships and calibrated the field generators to maximum efficiency. And the probability of success? Ortega asked directly. Voss hesitated. Based on simulations, 62%. The concept is sound, but this implementation was rushed. Under ideal circumstances, we would have had another year of testing. We don't have a year, Doctor. We have 30 minutes, I'm aware. Voss handed Ortega a data tablet. These are the primary command protocols. Once activated, the Aegis will generate a field extending approximately 300,000 kilometers from our position, large enough to encompass the colony and its immediate orbital space. Ortega reviewed the information quickly. And within this field, the fundamental interactions of matter and energy will be Rewritten. Specifically, directed energy weapons will diffuse exponentially with distance, rendering them ineffective beyond short range. Kinetic weapons will experience extreme gravitational lensing, making targeting virtually impossible. And our own weapons? Voss allowed herself a small smile. We've designed the field to recognize specific quantum signatures embedded in our technology. Our ships will operate normally while the Phalons find themselves fighting under completely different physical laws than they've trained for. Tactical alerts flashed as the Phalon battle group accelerated. Now just 30 minutes from weapons range, the massive formation consisted of 17 capital ships supported by dozens of smaller vessels. A fleet assembled from multiple Phalon worlds, committed to a provocative act that their government would likely disavow if it failed. They're launching advanced scout drones, Jackson reported. Standard tactical reconnaissance pattern. Ortega made her decision. All ships battle formation Delta. Titan moved to synchronization position. Prepare to activate Aegis on my mark. The human vessels moved with precision, forming a protective screen between the Phalon forces and the vulnerable colony. The Prometheus and Titan took central positions, maintaining exact coordinates required for the Aegis system. Admiral, the communications officer called. We're receiving a transmission from the Phalon command ship. On screen, Ortega ordered. The view screen displayed a Phalon war captain, its insectoid features arranged in what humans had learned to recognize as an expression of contempt. Human vessels, it began, mandibles clicking between words. You have entered a restricted zone. The Phalon autarchy has declared the system contaminated by quantum instabilities, resulting from your Harbinger technology. A transparent pretext but cleverly constructed. By claiming they were responding to a fabricated environmental hazard, the Phalons provided their sympathizers in the Council with a justification for the attack. We detect no such instabilities, Ortega replied evenly. Your presence here constitutes an act of war against Earth and its allies. Withdraw immediately. We are authorized to use lethal force to neutralize the threat, the war captain continued as if she hadn't spoken. Remove your vessels and abandon the colony for proper decontamination. That won't be happening, war captain. This is your final warning. The Phalon's compound eyes gleamed. We had hoped you would use your Harbinger. It would have justified immediate council intervention. But it gestured dismissively. This token defense will accomplish nothing except adding your crews to the casualty count. The transmission ended abruptly. Moments later, the tactical display showed the Phalon fleet accelerating to attack velocity. They're launching first-wave strike craft, Jackson reported. Targeting solutions indicate they're aiming for our defense cruisers first, then the colony's orbital infrastructure. Ortega nodded to Voss. Doctor, it's time. Voss opened a secure channel to her counterpart aboard the Titan. After a brief exchange confirming synchronization, she initiated the activation sequence. Aegis protocols engaged, she announced. Field generation commencing in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, sensors detected a subtle ripple extending outward from the two ships, a barely visible distortion that expanded rapidly, encompassing the human fleet and continuing toward the colony. Field stability at 94%, Voss reported, monitoring the complex readings. Coverage extending as projected. The Phalon strike craft entered weapons range, releasing the first volley of energy torpedoes, concentrated plasma weapons designed to overwhelm shields through sheer quantity. Impact in 5 seconds, Jackson announced tensely. The bridge crew braced for the assault. But as the torpedoes entered the Aegis field, their behavior changed dramatically. The concentrated plasma dispersed, spreading outward in luminous, harmless patterns that dissipated before reaching their targets. It's working, someone whispered. The Phalon forces, encountering an unexpected defense, adjusted quickly. Their capital ships launched kinetic projectiles. Massive metallic slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds. Weapons that should have punched through any known shielding. But within the Aegis field, these projectiles curved erratically, following twisted paths that sent them harmlessly into empty space. The laws of ballistics had been locally rewritten, rendering centuries of Phalon tactical doctrine useless. They're adapting, Jackson warned as the enemy fleet changed formation, moving to close-range engagement. This was the test Voss had been most concerned about. The Aegis field affected energy and projectile weapons most dramatically, but ships themselves could still navigate within it, albeit with reduced efficiency. All vessels, implement counterboarding protocols, Ortega ordered. Prepare for close engagement. The Phelan capital ships pushed forward, clearly intending to move close enough that even the distorted physics of the Aegis field wouldn't prevent their weapons from finding targets. But as they penetrated deeper into the field, their engines began to struggle against unexpected resistance. The field is creating localized gravitational eddies around their drive signatures, Voss explained, studying the data with growing confidence. Their engines are fighting against spatial distortions that ours are calibrated to navigate. The FE. 1 year after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the ancient council chamber had been transformed. Gone was the hierarchical arrangement that had placed older species in positions of prominence. In its place stood a circular forum, where representatives from all 219 spacefaring civilizations met as equals. The physical redesign reflected a fundamental restructuring of galactic governance, a new era born from the catalyst of humanity's entry onto the interstellar stage. Ambassador Thomas. Reed stood at the center of this transformed space, flanked by representatives from 24 species. Before him, the newly installed governance sphere, a holographic projection system that displayed real-time voting and consensus metrics across multiple dimensions of agreement, glowed with a soft blue light, indicating the unprecedented level of harmony the chamber was witnessing. The draft resolution of the Galactic Covenant has been reviewed by all member species, Reed announced, his voice carrying throughout the chamber without technological amplification, a small symbolic gesture honoring traditional diplomatic customs. Today we vote not just on a new governance structure, but on a new understanding of our collective future. Elder Thalix of the Arcturans, now serving as Reed's co-chair on the Reformation Committee, stepped forward. His ancient form moved with renewed vigor, as if the events of the past year had awakened something long dormant in his species. For 50,000 years, Thalix began, the council governed through tradition and incremental change. We believed this brought stability. What it actually created was stagnation, a system that resisted innovation and feared difference. His 6 eyes surveyed the chamber thoughtfully. It took the arrival of humanity, and their refusal to accept the place we had designated for them, to show us our error. The covenant before you today enshrines not just new rules, but new principles, mutual defense, technological cooperation, and the fundamental equality of all sentient species regardless of their age or development stage. The governance sphere pulsed as preliminary voting began, with species registering their initial positions. Clusters of green indicators representing affirmative votes predominated, though several red points of opposition glowed prominently. The Phelan representative rose to speak. Following the failed attack on Proxima Centauri and the subsequent revelations about their government's duplicity, the Phelan autarky had undergone its own internal revolution. The current representative was from a reformist faction that had seized power amid public outrage. Let the Phelan people acknowledge our government's role in nearly triggering a galactic war, the representative stated, mandibles moving carefully to form the precise sounds required. Our opposition to this covenant stems not from rejection of its principles, but from concern that our voice, now tainted by the actions of our predecessors, will be diminished in the new order. Reed nodded respectfully. Your concerns are noted and understood. The covenant explicitly prohibits collective punishment of any species for the actions of previous governments. The Phelan voice will be equal to all others, neither privileged by your ancient status nor diminished by recent history. From the observation gallery, Director James Way watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. Beside him stood Admiral Ortega, Dr. Voss, and General Harlow, the architects of Earth's new position in the galactic community. They've come around faster than we anticipated, Harlow noted, referring to several former opposition species now registering supportive votes. Way nodded slightly. Fear and respect are powerful motivators, but it's the Aegis that truly changed the equation, demonstrating that we could defend ourselves without destroying our attackers, altered how we're perceived from a threat to a potential protector. Dr. Voss studied the complex voting patterns displayed on the governance sphere. It's not unanimous. There will always be resistance to change, especially from those who benefited most from the old system. Unanimity isn't required for progress, Wei replied. Only sufficient consensus to move forward while addressing legitimate concerns. The pattern emerging on the sphere suggests we've achieved that balance. On the chamber floor, the formal voting procedure continued. One by one, representatives approached the central platform to register their species' position on the Covenant. The ritual combined ancient tradition with the new technology, each delegate placing their hand or appropriate appendage on a recognition panel while stating their vote aloud. When the draconian General Corvin took his turn, his scaled features arranged in a solemn expression, the draconian hegemony votes to affirm the Galactic Covenant and formally recognizes Earth as a founding architect of the new order. He paused, adding with characteristic directness, "We acknowledge that this transformation was necessary, if painful for many. Change rarely comes without discomfort." As the voting neared completion, the Meridian representative, a crystalline being whose internal light patterns shifted with emotion, approached the platform. As one of the species that had first allied with humanity during the Council Schism, the Meridians had played a crucial role in gathering support for the reforms. "The Meridian confluence affirms the Covenant," they announced, their voice resonating with harmonics that conveyed deeper meaning to those capable of perceiving it. "We further propose that this chamber recognize that what began as humanity's defensive stand against extinction has evolved into something far more significant, the catalyst for a more equitable galaxy." The C governance sphere processed the final votes, displaying a three-dimensional map of consensus. While not unanimous, the support was overwhelming. 197 species in favor, 14 opposed, and 8 abstaining. Reed and Thalix exchanged a formal gesture of completion, a hybrid protocol developed to honor both human and Arcturan traditions. "The Galactic Covenant is ratified," Reed announced. "It will take effect immediately. The Transition Council will dissolve, and the new Galactic Assembly will convene in 30 standard days to begin implementation." As the formal session concluded, representatives gathered in smaller groups throughout the chamber. The mood was both celebratory and solemn, a recognition that while a new era had begun, the work of transformation had only just started. In a private meeting room adjacent to the main chamber, Reed joined Wei, Ortega, and the rest of the human delegation. President Cardoso's holographic presence dominated one end of the room, her expression reflecting cautious satisfaction. "A historic achievement, Ambassador Reed," Cardoso acknowledged. "When I appointed you to this position 16 years ago, neither of us imagined you would help reshape the entire galactic governance structure." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "I merely represented our position, Madam President. It was the events themselves, and our response to them that created this opportunity." "And the Harbinger?" Cardoso asked, her tone more serious. "The Covenant provisions regarding its control are substantial," Wei nodded. "By agreeing to place the Harbinger technology under a multi-species oversight commission, we've transformed it from a threat into a foundation for mutual security. No single species, including humanity, can unilaterally deploy it, but its existence serves as a powerful deterrent against any future genocide attempts. While the Aegis," added Dr. Voss, "is being shared with all signatories to the Covenant, the first joint development program is already establishing defensive fields around vulnerable colonies throughout the galaxy, including several that were previously considered too difficult to protect." President Cardoso considered this information thoughtfully. "And our position within this new arrangement? Have we secured what we sought?" "More than we sought," Reed replied honestly. "When we began this journey, we wanted only security and respect, the right to develop without interference. What we've achieved is a fundamental restructuring of power that benefits not just Earth, but dozens of other species who were marginalized under the old system." General Harlow, ever the pragmatist, added, "The military cooperation provisions are particularly significant. Joint fleet exercises have already begun with 7 allied species. The defensive capabilities we're developing together exceed anything we could have achieved alone." "And our primary opponents?" Cardoso pressed. "Adapting to the new reality," Wei explained. "The Phalans are undergoing internal reforms that may eventually make them valuable partners. Other former opposition species are gradually recognizing the benefits of the new system. There will always be tensions, but the framework for resolving them peacefully is stronger than ever before. The meeting was interrupted by a discreet notification. Elder Thalix requested permission to join them, an unprecedented gesture, as private species meetings were traditionally respected as closed affairs. Please invite him in. Cardoso authorized. The ancient Arcturan entered with the deliberate movement of one who had witnessed millennia of galactic history. He acknowledged each human with a traditional gesture of respect before addressing the group. I wish to speak with you privately, Thalix began, away from the formal proceedings. What has occurred this past year goes beyond political reorganization. It represents an evolutionary inflection point for our collective civilization. The humans exchanged glances, recognizing the significance of this assessment from one of the galaxy's oldest living beings.